Okay, lovely. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Student Minds presentation and Q&A session on active stress management. So I'm Amy Casperho. I'm the peer support manager at Student Minds. I do hope you enjoyed the session. So the plan is that I'll be giving you a presentation for the next sort of 15-20 minutes, and then sort of 30 minutes, 45 minutes is open to ask any questions. So hopefully you can see my screen and the presentation, but do let me know if you can't. So I'll start the session by introducing you to Student Minds in who we are and what we do in student mental health. I'll then talk about the impact of COVID-19 on student mental health and sort of our response to that situation in creating student space. I'll then talk about active stress management, so exploring what stress is, self-awareness, and then introducing you to the stress bucket. I'll then move on to talking about helpful coping strategies, such as reaching out for help, self-care, and 5 ways to well-being, and also to introduce you to a Wellbeing Toolkit. After the presentation, like I said, it's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you might have about Student Minds or student space or active stress management. So, introducing Student Minds. So Student Minds is the UK's student mental health charity. It was founded by Nicola Byram and Hannah Tickle in 2009 as a student-run self-help, student-led peer support group for students experiencing eating difficulties. So from their own experience, Nicola and Hannah were passionate about equipping students with the knowledge and confidence to support their own and their peers' mental health. So in 2010, the first eating disorder support groups were launched, providing an invaluable source of support for students experiencing eating difficulties by offering them a confidential, safe space to share. In 2013, SRSH took over supporting the student campaign network called Mental Health, and they were rebranded as Student Minds. So Student Minds uses a national network of student groups and staff trainers to fulfill the aim of empowering students with the knowledge, confidence and skills to look after their own mental health and well-being, and to also support others. There are a number of Student Minds campaigns groups at universities across the UK working on their campuses to promote positive mental health. So, Student Minds, we empower students to run peer support groups, campaign on issues meaningful to them, and share experiences on our student-run blog. We also provide training for university and student accommodation staff on developing skills and running workshops to improve student mental health. And we ensure our work and everything that we do is evidence-led by collaborating to conduct groundbreaking research, create interventions, effective solutions, and co-produce essential guidance. One of the things we do is peer support. So this is my area of work and expertise. And we know that students are more likely to talk to friends and peers about their problems. So we have a number of formal peer support groups across the country in a safe pro-recovery environment. So very much what I do is lead and manage those groups all across the country within the universities or students' unions. Something else we do is other student-led initiatives. So we also coordinate a network of student campaign groups and empower them to champion the student voice on mental health by raising awareness and running their own campaigns. And Student Minds blog is the biggest student-led blog on university life and mental health in the UK. The student editorial team we have produce, edit and curate essential content for students by students. Another thing we do is we run the trainer programs. So we equip university staff to run workshops to build on their mental health literacy on their campuses, enabling us to reach a greater number of students in the UK. We also run train the trainer programs for peer support as well. So, oh gosh, so sorry. That is the worst thing to happen. We also run trainer programs for peer support. So I train staff members from the university or unions to run their own peer support groups locally within on their campus. We also drive national change by developing research and policy recommendations and sharing best practice as influenced by the student voice. So, for example, the University Mental Health Charter. We create and run research-driven national campaigns, including University Mental Health Day on the 4th of March 2021, if you were involved in that. We also share knowledge and resources such as Know Before You Go and transitions guides for prospective and current students. So, the impact of COVID-19 on student mental health and student space. So I just want to move on now to talk about how COVID-19 has impacted on student mental health and how Student Minds has responded to the pandemic. So students may be facing disruption to their face-to-face support programs, experiencing isolation or loneliness, or find that features of the response to coronavirus, such as emphasis on hand washing, aggravate symptoms of an existing mental health condition. Different students are affected by the pandemic in various ways, depending on a number of factors about themselves. So, for example, what they study, their lifestyle, and their socio-economic circumstances. So, in response to this, student space has been carefully designed to make the best use of the resource available. So it aims to supplement and support, but not replace existing services. We do not intend to offer types of therapeutic support already provided by universities, colleges, and the NHS, who are currently still working hard to support students. Let me just move that out of the way, my apologies. Student Space is here for students through the coronavirus and is available to all higher education students across England and Wales. So Student Space is a trusted place to access confidential support via text, phone, email, and web chat. You can explore the online resources on the website, and you can also find help available at your university. So you can see here, these are the options available to you to access any help you may need. And you can use Student Space for phone support, web chat support, text support, and email support. So whatever your preference of communication is online, you're able to access support when you need it. So that was about Student Minds and Student Space. So I just want to move on now to talking about active stress management. So to explore the ways that you can actively manage your own stress levels. So first off, what is stress? The first thing is to say that stress is quite normal. It's defined as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. So in other words, stress is a response to a perceived threat. It can motivate us to get things done, but it can also be really difficult to experience. Our fight or flight stress response is an important part of human survival, preparing us to deal effectively with potential threats. However, as modern life has many threats, which are not easily managed with short-lived practical action, we can end up spinning our wheels with stress, going into overdrive, and making us vulnerable to anxiety, low mood, and depression. So to prevent stress from spiraling out of control in this way, we need to learn how to deactivate the threat response when it isn't useful to us. So the key to this is to activate your brain's emotional regulation systems using calming and soothing techniques to return your brain to equilibrium. So some people do find they perform best when they have stress. For example, if they have deadlines, they like to have that stress to motivate them. So stress can push us into action and have a positive influence, but it can also have those negative effects when it becomes too much. So, for example, if stress is prolonged, it can be harmful to our health and our performance. So, like I said before, stress is a very normal experience, and no matter what life throws at you, there are always ways of coping, which is why it can be beneficial to learn strategies that are helpful to you. First, it's important to be self-aware of our own stress levels and what is making us feel stressed in the first place. So to recognise signs of stress, the experience of stress can be felt cognitively, so what's going on with our thoughts, can be felt emotionally, so our feelings, behaviourally, so through our actions, and physiologically, so feeling stress in our bodies. So to really think about your own stress levels and your self-awareness. So if you think cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally, or physiologically, just think about like what thoughts do you tend to have when you're feeling stressed, what feelings do you have when you are stressed, and behaviorally, what things do you do when you're feeling stressed, and what happens in your body when you're feeling stressed. So move on to the stress bucket, which is my personal favourite. So knowing how our bodies respond to stress can help us identify when we feel stress so that we can try coping strategies that may benefit us depending on the circumstances. Since the 4 domains of our body's response to stress that influence each other, we can reduce stress overall by focusing on any one of those areas. So, for example, doing some physical activity can help our physiological response, as well as our emotional, cognitive, and behavioural symptoms too. So we can look at what causes stress and how we cope with that by considering our stress bucket. So if you imagine all your stress going into that bucket with your coping strategies acting as the tap, the bucket will either overflow when things get too much and you're unable to cope and you're not implementing those coping strategies. That bucket's going to overflow and it becomes problematic, or things run really smoothly and you have a good level of stress, but you have those helpful coping strategies and things come out of that bucket through the tap. So let's explore some helpful coping strategies and get that tap running. So one thing you can do is reach out for help. So you can see there through Student Space, you've got the University of Gloucestershire. So you've got your student help zones, you can go and approach them for help, and then they can direct you to the various counselling services and the mental health and wellbeing services that you have. But maybe also consider what are you already doing to stay in touch with others? We know during the pandemic, we're kind of on Zoom or FaceTime, keeping in touch with people. But consider what other steps you could take to keep in touch with others. So even if it's just sending a text message or, you know, like a message on social media, think about other ways that you can stay in touch with people. We know that asking for help can be one of the most important things we can do when we're struggling with our mental health, and it can be something that we find very difficult to do, especially if it's something that's new to us. So if you are looking to reach out for help, it's worth considering, you know, which person would be easiest to talk to first. Think about what you would say to them and what's the simplest way to describe how you're feeling. Think about what you don't want that person to say and how would you manage that conversation if they like came out with any triggers like that. And then what, if anything, is stopping you from talking to these people and how will you manage this? So a lot of the time people who reach out for help feel like they're a burden and they feel like they're being a pain to other people, but that's not the case at all. And a lot of the time you kind of think those things and it stops you from reaching out for help. But actually when you get to that stage of talking to somebody, they really appreciate that you've approached them and that you've spoken to them, and then, you know, they can help you. The other thing you can do is various self-care activities. So what kinds of support can we offer to ourselves? So one of the things we can aim to do is to soothe our 5 senses. So thinking about sight and surroundings, so things from tidying your room with a plan and having some soothing colours in your room, pictures of friends, or getting out into nature and experiencing nature, or even just watching some funny or light-hearted TV or movies. You know, I myself have a few safety movies that I like to watch if I'm feeling a little bit run down. Oh, sorry. My apologies. Oh gosh, there we go. There's also touch, so pampering, a washing ritual, stroking a pet, massage, hugs if you can, if you've got housemates that you're living with or your family, things that that you can touch and you can be really mindful while you're doing it can be really helpful. Another one is hearing, so actually if you've got your favorite playlist, you can listen to that, listen to sort of uplifting and energetic music. Sitting near the sea, if you're near the coast, can do that. Can listen to podcasts and comedy. There's lots of things you can do with hearing. Another sense is smell. So having clean clothes and fresh bed linen is my personal favourite. Aromatherapy or incense in your room, or fresh flowers, or just going outside and just smelling the air, just things like that, that you can do to be mindful and to soothe your senses. The last one is taste. So you can try new tastes, cook healthy, tasty food instead of bland processed food. And then, while you're eating your food, you can savor it and eat really mindfully and just really taste those flavors. So one of the things I like to do is bake bread, and bread is, I absolutely love the smell of it, but you're also tasting the bread as well. So you kind of can find things where you can soothe more than one sense at a time. So it's worth considering what you like to do to self-care. So another thing I want to talk to you about is 5 ways to well-being. So evidence from the New Economics Foundation says there are 5 steps to improve mental health and well-being. An effective self-soothing routine is vital to our health and well-being. So babies learn to suck their thumbs when they need to soothe themselves. Supposedly, my baby doesn't. But as adults, we have lots more options to soothe ourselves. Self-neglect and having an uncaring attitude towards yourself are common results of feeling stressed or low. So we are used to a culture of thinking we need to give ourselves a kick in the butt in order to actually achieve things. But especially when you're already overly stressed or feeling low or experiencing other negative feelings like anxiety or anger, this can often have the opposite effect of being demotivating and depressing. So it's much more effective to find positive ways to move your brain out of stress mode. So finding calming, comforting, pleasurable things that allow you to restore and rejuvenate yourself. So you can see through connect, you can talk and listen and be there and feel connected with others. You can be active, so do what you can, even if it's just walking around the block, but also enjoying what you do. If you go to the gym and you enjoy it, that's brilliant. Take notice, so remember the simple things that give you joy, whether that's a cup of tea, watching a favorite episode or something. Keep learning, so having that curious mind, embracing new experiences and seeing opportunities and surprising yourself. And the last one is give. So you can give your time, your words, your presence, volunteering for places, especially student minds, not being biased. If you volunteer for student minds, volunteering, giving your time for something for good is so good for your mental health and well-being, because you feel valued and you feel like you're part of something really great. So I want to move on to the Wellbeing Toolkit. So self-care is a priority for us at Student Minds, and we regularly use wellbeing toolkits and wellbeing action plans to help us think about our mental health and wellbeing. So I just wanted to share this with you. The Wellbeing Toolkit is a useful tool for thinking about self-care and how we can look after ourselves. So after this session is over, you can quietly spend about 5-10 minutes reflecting on this toolkit and writing things down. So, and this is something that you can regularly refer back to when you're feeling a bit stressed and think about, right, how do I know I'm feeling stressed and what things can I do to help support my well-being? So I've done enough talking and I hope you enjoyed that presentation. So now is the Q&A. So if you have any questions about anything I covered in this presentation, about stress or student minds, student space, or anything else, has anyone got any questions?
No, that was really, really great, Amy. Thank you so much for kind of going through that and also giving a bit of context onto student minds and student space as well. I think it's really good that you've said a little bit about student space. That's obviously, directly been set up for the university students in the pandemic. So thank you so much for that. I'm not sure if others had any questions, but there was some that I had, as well as some that some students sent through. So maybe I could, kind of ask the first one, and then we can kind of go from there, maybe take it in turns. One student's asked, like, how can they avoid stress, in terms of what can they do to kind of not get to the point of getting stressed, what they can do in the meantime to kind of hopefully nip it in the bud. Is there anything you could kind of advise there?
That's a really good question. And I guess it depends on the situations that they're in and what they find stressed. But one of the things they can do is set boundaries. So if there are particular things that they find are making them feel quite stressed, then, there are boundaries that they can put in place to make sure that that stress isn't prolonged. But also with the Wellbeing Toolkit, you can use that to be mindful of your own stress levels and make sure you're regularly looking after your well-being, and you're kind of, from that stress bucket, making sure you keep turning that tap on every so often and releasing that stress. So I think those are a couple of things that would be really helpful.
Kind of like the awareness, isn't it? Like being aware and recognizing yourself, and if you start to feel stressed, and like you say, kind of writing it down and just being very aware of it is really nice. So yeah, I know that's fab. I didn't know if anyone else had any questions and wanted to come in. No, there was a few more I had, Amy. One student has asked kind of how they manage their time around kind of their workload and kind of their assessments. They say that a lot of their stress can be made through their kind of organisation and the time that they have. So is there something there that they can be doing about their organisation and time management to help with stress?
Another good question. So one of the things they can do, I'm sure if they Googled time management, there's some sort of software or something you can use to sort of break down your activities and how long you spend on each activity. If they can't find anything like that, I personally look at what I need to do, look at what needs to be done first, prioritize what I need to do, and map out things through various Gantt charts, sticky notes. I use Todoist to try and keep on top of everything, but I also make sure that, again, I implement well-being in my self-care to make sure that I'm not just working all the time, because especially being at home and working from home, you can be here all day working quite easily, which obviously isn't healthy. So it's about breaking everything down, thinking what needs to be done first and prioritize, and then just make sure that you're looking after yourself throughout the day.
Definitely, because I think there's also stuff with a lot of the kind of stress and uncertainty can cause that as well, especially with the pandemic and not really knowing kind of what's happening, and sometimes feeling kind of in the dark. I think maybe certainly for myself, a lot of the uncertainty can be kind of linked to the stress levels, and not knowing, especially someone that kind of wants to kind of know where you stand and wants to organize. So yeah, maybe could those techniques that you've spoken about be used for the uncertainty as well?
I think so, yeah. Uncertainty, completely understand that. And Student Space has got a lot of resources on uncertainty and how that does cause stress and anxiety. It's one of those things where you do feel quite out of control of the situation. So it's really important to sit with those feelings. Like, those feelings are perfectly valid, and it's okay to feel that way. So it's just one of those things where you just try and sit with it, and be really mindful that actually I'm feeling like this, and that's okay, and continue to try and implement those self-care techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really kind of good technique. And I think certainly sometimes you can kind of get stressed about being stressed, can't you? Like, you're very aware that you're stressed and you're annoyed that you're stressed, and then you just get even more stressed. And sometimes it can be like a vicious cycle, can't it? So hopefully that some of those techniques you used, and I'm sure there's some great resources on Student Space that students listening here can access and look into. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about like the resources on Student Space and what our students can do to kind of access some of that?
Yeah, so under Student Space, there is a section called Advice and Information. So there's all sorts. There's so things around studying during the coronavirus, lockdown and self-isolation. There's things about friendships and social life, but also more overall about mental health and well-being, and things like applying for jobs, money, life as a disabled student, and grief and loss. So it covers a whole range of different topics that the coronavirus has had an impact on. So I would definitely encourage going on the Student Space website to have a look. There's also student stories, so actually hearing from students firsthand about their experiences and what they've done to support themselves and support each other through the coronavirus. So yeah, there is lots on the website.
Oh, great. That's really, really good. Thank you for that. Hopefully, some students who are listening and will be able to go and have a look at that, and things on that will be quite useful. Is there anything like on the Student Minds website, or kind of contacts where students can get some more stuff, or would you say kind of direct them to Student Space?
I would direct them to Student Space in the first instance, especially because we're still in the pandemic, as it were. So the information that is there is the most up to date and most relevant. So
yeah, no, that's really, really great. Did anyone have any other questions at all, or anything from the presentation to kind of elaborate on? No? Cool. Okay. Well, don't have any more kind of questions. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up then. Thank you so much, Amy, for your time.